Hello and welcome to the Jury Roundtable for 1984 Royal Court. So, we are going to get right into it. We want to touch on all of our three finalists. We have, of course, Shayna, Scott, and Cade. So, in no particular order, I want us to basically go through the three of them, talk about some of their merits, some of the things that you respect about each of their games, some of the things that maybe you don't respect about their games. This is an open forum. None of the finalists will see this until after the season is over. The viewers are not going to see this until after the season is over. So you guys feel free to share your thoughts and, really talk about it because you guys have the opportunity now to maybe influence each other and, kind of how people are thinking going into tomorrow's finale. So without, again, in no particular order, let's start with talking about Scott's game. So if someone wants to start, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I can pose a question to someone and we can go from there. Okay. Well, I see that Brian and Sarah are not exactly, uh, from I think Sarah's frozen, but from the messages in the chat that Brian is sending and Sarah's frozen expression, I see that you guys are not the biggest fans of Scott. Mia, how are you? How are you viewing Scott
I
at this?
have I have no opinion about him. No opinion about him. Damn, those are my AirPods. Those are my sorry. I'm so sorry. He's literally like trying to use my AirPods. But I have no opinion about Scott other than bad opinions about him. That's not a great answer, but
So you say that, I mean, you're the one here coming into this game as a fellow returnee with Scott. You're the one who has the most knowledge of him as a game player. So did Scott meet your expectations? Was he different than maybe last time? What, kind of talk about him this time compared to last time, maybe.
yeah, well, just like he said about me, he's the same old Scott. Same person. He just like begs everyone for pity and uses everyone for emotional support and emotional labor has been performed by I think every single one of us on the jury. Um, and then he'd go and backstab you in the next vote. He'd be like, I really want to work together. No, you don't. Like, you obviously don't if you're voting against me and saying that I'm the same old Mia. I think he has no redeeming qualities in terms of gameplay.
Okay. And Brian, I see Brian in the chat is saying, I told Scott to play for himself, but I felt like he was too scared to do so. So, Brian, is there a specific moment or was there a time in the game that you want to specifically point out where you felt like you were encouraging him to play for himself and you were hoping that he would do so, but he didn't do that? And I'll give you a second to type your answer. So So Brian is saying, um, when Scott told Brian that he wanted to keep him around, that he wanted Cade out, um, but then Brian said, "So you're keeping me," and Scott just said no. Is that accurate, Brian? So he so he lied for no reason. He wasn't a master of deception, as you're saying, and you were frustrated by his behavior. Sarah and Mia and Danny, if you're able to speak, did you guys feel similarly like Scott lied for no reason at times?
No reason. It was horrible gameplay when I knew I was going home, obviously, because I was getting fucking backdoored. And then I'm just like, hey, like, wanna hop on a quick call? No response. Wanna hop on a quick call? No response. I feel like that's horrible jury management. Like, I know I'm going home. Like, just do a 5 minute call. I would call him every fucking day, even though I didn't want to, because he's so annoying to talk to. So it's just like, why would you not just like call me for 5 seconds, be like, I'm voting for you, like, sorry about it. Same thing with Carly. Carly lied to me and said she wasn't going to vote for me, and then she did. But Scott was more slimy because he didn't even respond to my messages. Carly at least made the effort to make a lie.
Sarah, did you have any thoughts on that? Did you have similar experiences with Scott as the others here?
I feel like he lied to me like that much because I feel like he didn't speak about game with me like at all. Most of our conversations were on personal levels. Like we got along really well. Like we would be friends outside of this house, but In terms of the game, I would ask him where his head was at or stuff like that. And he would just be literally, he would be like, I don't really know what's going on. And, I'm just having fun. And, just like a very generic conversation. So I don't really feel like I know based on me, I don't really feel like I knew where his head was at in the game. I just know off of like being the smartest person in the room that he was working with Carly and Shayna, which was so freaking obvious. Like he couldn't hide it at all. But when I would ask about who he likes and who he would mention freaking Brian, like what? Like that's so random. So I just feel like he wasn't really honest. I don't really feel like he lied to me, but I don't feel like he was honest. And I feel like he purposely didn't say stuff to me because he didn't want to be considered a liar towards me because I would call him out. So he purposely didn't tell me where his vote was at or and like Mia just said, like if I was on the block or if I was in like a tight position, he would ignore you. Like he would ignore you the whole day. And then or potentially when I stayed, oh, good morning, how are you? Like message me the next day, like everything's good. But when I was like campaigning for votes and stuff, it's like he was waiting for like his leader, Carly, to, give him an answer and ignoring me. And then when Carly, his leader, gave him an answer, then he would come and message me back and talk to me. So I just really felt like he wasn't really playing his own game just from what I've seen, like if Carly or Shayna can say like he did something, then let me know because I don't really know what he did besides be confused the whole
That
season.
part. That part. Because also, like early in the game when I was like not really working with him or just being like kind of more closer aligned, um, he would always be like, we'd call first thing in the morning, not first thing in the morning, but early in the day, he'd be like, yes, I'm gonna vote this way. Like I'm voting this way, I'm set on this way. And then 30 minutes later, I hear from someone else, oh, I just talked to Scott. He said he's on the fence. So it's like, why lie to me? Just tell me you're on the fence. Like we can talk about this vote. Like we're supposedly allies. Like he was my closest ally ever, but like, why wouldn't you just like talk through it? Like obviously you're entitled to your vote, but like just talk to me about it. Don't lie to me and say you're set and then tell someone 15 minutes later that you're on the fence.
I
So I
kind
want to
of feel
jump.
like
Oh,
I'm
go
like
ahead,
in like
Yumi.
a I feel like I'm in like a unique position because I like Scott didn't vote me out. We were on the block together. So Scott is the first person that I talked with like in the game, and he's also the last person I talked to in the game. Like we talked literally maybe 20 up to like maybe 10, 15 minutes before like my eviction we were talking. And it's just like I don't ever feel like he lied to me. Like if he did something that he didn't think I would like, he was straight up with me about it. Um so I don't really think that like he ever lied to me. And even like when he backdoored Cody, he didn't really lie to me about it at all. We had actually kind of had a conversation earlier in the day, um, or the night before. Earlier in the day, I think it was earlier in the day, and we didn't like name names, but he kind of made it clear. I think Scott's biggest flaw is that like you can't be friends with everybody, right? Like a friend to all is a friend to none. Like you can't be friendly with everybody and then not have people be offended when you're dishonest with them. But I do have a different opinion because, like I said, he never lied to me about voting me out because he didn't have the option to vote me out. So it's kind of different from everybody else's perspective.
Yeah, he also did lie to me for the Maddie and Cade vote. Well, everyone lied to me and Sarah. Everyone lied to us, but he literally told me straight up. I called him like 30 minutes before the vote and he was going on and I was performing emotional labor to him and I was like, "So you're voting Cade, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." 5 minutes later, they vote at Maddie and then me and Sarah into live night. And then obviously we get targeted during HOH and both of us are sitting on the block. So it's like he literally lied to me straight up for that vote. And he got so salty at me on over DMs. He was like, Mia, sweetie, didn't you do the same thing for me for live night? I was like, girl, I didn't even lie to you. I didn't even text him during that whole thing because he was like HOH or something. So I'm like, why? I looked back and I didn't tell him that I was voting Austin. I didn't even tell him that I was doing that. Or I didn't like make say a lot. I forget who else was on the block. But like I didn't even tell him that I was like either way. So it's like I didn't even lie to him and then he made a lie back to get even with me and was very salty about it. So it just put a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, obviously it's Big Brother and people lie, but I'm just like that was kind of bad game playing.
I just want to jump in quickly and I want to read some of the stuff that Brian's been putting in the chat, just so, especially when the finalists watch this back, because they obviously won't be able to read the chat. So Brian was sharing his thoughts about Scott, basically saying, personally, I don't hate Scott, but game-wise, he was a brick wall, and I don't think he realizes how obvious his game was. Like his perception didn't match players' reality. And then he specifically put a, conversation that he had with Scott when Brian was on the block with Austin, where it seems like, and Brian, if I'm misrepresenting, please, say so, but it seems like you're implying that Scott essentially, despite being one of the royal court members that round when you were on the block with Austin, he wasn't taking any accountability for you being on the block next to Austin and was essentially, again, from what you're saying here, when you stayed in the vote, he was acting like, he helped you in some way, right? So I'm seeing that that's accurate. So, it's interesting that Danny has a different perspective on the whole situation there because it seems like, Sarah, Brian, and Mia, you all kind of feel similarly that, you saw what he was doing. He was unnecessarily lying, as you're saying, but Danny had a different perspective. So, um, I want to shift to, talking not so much on the social aspect of it, because I think that's a lot of what we've been talking about, but in terms of, let's talk about that competition aspect, because Scott, has had, competition wins throughout this season. So were there any specific moves or decisions that he made with his competition wins that you guys, feel positively or negatively about? Brian obviously feels, a certain way about Scott being HOH during the live night. But did you feel like he used his power effectively when he had it? Does anyone have any thoughts they want to jump in on?
I'll go first, just because I got out first and I only seen him, I think, win one or two. His first HOH, he put up Austin. I feel like he put up Austin for no reason. Honestly, like that wasn't a good move, to be honest. And he thought Brian was gonna go home. He did not think Austin was gonna go home. He told me that. He told other people that. So when Austin went home, he was surprised. And then when Cody had put me up and I was going around to people saying, I didn't know we had to tell the HOH who we were voting for. Because if the HOH is not voting, they don't need to know like where the vote's gonna lie. It doesn't really matter to them. So I literally went up to Scott and I'm like, Scott, like, did you want us to tell you that we were gonna vote Austin out or did you care? He's just like, no, I didn't expect you guys to tell me. He just didn't expect Brian to stay. Obviously, because Brian's a big target. So I feel like his intention in putting Austin up wasn't to get him out. I feel like that just fell in his hands, to be honest. Like it wasn't like an intentional move. Like it wasn't thought out, it wasn't careful. So him saying, "Oh, I'm the reason Brian stayed." No, you're not. You had no say in Brian staying at all. So yeah, that's really all he did when I was there, and I don't think he pretty much did anything else. I feel like he just voted where his alliance wanted him to vote. And if he didn't, they would have turned on him like they turned on Maddie.
And with his, because I want to talk about, so we talked about that round. So I want to talk about his second HOH win, which was during live night when he nominated Mia and Cade, and then Shayna won the veto and took down Mia, and then Cody went up and Cody entered the jury after that. So Sarah, being that you were the only juror at that point, were you surprised to see Cody join the jury after you? And, were you surprised that it was at Scott's hand? What was your perception of Scott in that moment that he sent Cody out? Did you think that was the right choice?
I was surprised because like when I would ask him about Cody, he was just like, "Oh yeah, they have good conversations. They're fine. They're not like besties or anything, but they're fine." But I didn't think Scott would have been the one to take out Cody. I thought it would have been Shayna or Carly just based off of them turning on him the week I was evicted. I didn't think Scott would have the guts to do that. So him convincing, I don't know if he convinced her or whatever, Shayna using the veto on Mia and then putting up Cody, I feel like he made that move, but I feel like it wouldn't have worked if Carly and Shayna didn't back him up there. Like if they were in agreement to getting him out, he would not have he wouldn't have had the guts to put up Cody in the first place. So we can say he made that move, but we don't know what their confessionals were. We don't know if Carly was in the background saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna get Scott to backdoor Cody," or Shayna is saying, "I'm gonna get," I just feel like that move would not have been made if Shayna did not use the POV. And her using the POV basically lets everyone know that she also was in agreement with getting Cody out. So I don't really know what their conversations were, but I just feel like, again, the three of them made that decision. And then Shayna and Carly are two votes together. So at all times, they're going to be together. And then I guess everyone, he's a big target. So they all hopped on that, you know? So
Right, right. So Danny put in the chat, she just had to hop off for a few minutes. She said she'll rejoin, but she did put in the chat saying, I do think backdooring Cody during the live night was a good move, even if I wasn't happy about it. And Brian then put in that he agrees, but he doesn't know who gets agency for it. So I want to go to Mia then, because Mia, you were the one, on the block that round. And of course, you were taken off with the veto. So what's your perception of that round? And who would you, from your perspective, give credit or agency, as Brian said, for that move? Do you think it was Scott's move? Is that your perception?
It was not Scott's move. Oh my God. It was not his fucking move at all. First of all, I won veto. I took my ass real quick off the block. I think everyone in the house wanted Cody out. Like literally everyone. Also well, I didn't win veto. Shayna won veto. Sorry, you know what I meant. Literally during veto, I was shouting out how to not let Cody win. Like everyone was anti-Cody then. Like everyone. So it's like it wasn't his move at all. If he didn't nominate Cody, then he would have everyone would have hated him, obviously. So it was not his move. I'll just say this. If I ever voted for Scott in a final in any of these games, just know I had my lobotomy the previous day. I'll just say that. And that's like pretty much all I have to say about him.
So, there's been a lot of discussion when it came to Scott as far as, making moves for other people or really following the lead of Carly and Shayna, as you guys have pointed out. So, seeing as Shayna is one of the other finalists, I think this is a good time to maybe transition over to her. And let's talk a little bit about her game. So, to review, I'm going to quickly pull it up here. So, Shayna has been nominated a total of one time. He's won one veto, and she won two HOHs. So, and she was picked as an advisor one time. So, only nominated one time, and she has three competition wins. So, talking about, the competitions that she's won, do we have any perception of, kind of what she did with those wins? As you said, Mia, we were just talking about the live night where she won the veto and took you off the block. How do you view that as, a move of hers? Do you view that as she had more agency that round than Scott, who was HOH, or how do you kind of put those two together?
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely working with like Colleen Scott too for that, but like I do think it was like her move to take me out. Obviously, I was pissed about that because who wants to go home? But like, I mean, obviously it was a good move for her. Like I feel like I was in an okay spot. So like I, it was her move. I would say it was her move, primarily hers.
And I see Brian put in the chat, I think Shayna deserves to win. I don't care. Game wise, strategic game wise, Shayna and I made a deal to work together or try to from round 10 onwards, and she held to it. So, thinking strategically, strategic game wise, how do you all feel about her strategic game? Are there specific times that she's impressed you guys with her strategic moves or her actions? Or on the flip side, are there times when she potentially, let you guys down or made moves that you didn't think were necessarily the right way to work? Do you guys have any opinions on any of the moves that she's made or moments where she's had some agency?
no, the only strategic she made was her staying when I put her on the block. Other than that, like, what has she done solely for herself in the game to move forward for herself? The only reason why she hasn't also went on the block is because her allies were winning. So she aligned herself with the right people, Brian, and that's why she didn't get put on the block, to be honest. But she didn't need
So
to win because she wasn't going to go up.
if you're saying, she basically aligned herself with the right people and she didn't need to win because she wasn't going to go up, does that
Mhm.
speak to her social game because she was able to work with the right people and make the right moves? Or do you view that, negatively, like she basically didn't do anything? Kind of what side of the fence are you on, Sarah?
Towards me, I don't feel like I just feel like she just talked like a lot, like to like the public, to all of us. I feel like she just started drama and just spoke when she didn't need to. She wanted to call people out, like to embarrass them, just to have attention on her or just to have attention on other people. In terms of like private conversations she had with other people, I don't exactly know, but I was surprised that certain HOHs, Brian, I was surprised that she didn't go up and come to find out they were clearly working together. But I just feel like her alliance just kept winning and there was no way she was gonna go on the block. Like clearly Danny was working with them. I don't care what she said, she was working with them. So she wasn't gonna put them up. Carly wasn't gonna put her up and Scott wasn't gonna put her up. And then Brian didn't put her up. So I guess you can say like she was strategic for working with the right people, but I don't know, she didn't really win when I was there. So yeah, I guess
Okay.
that was a good game move on her part. I don't know if it was intentional or she just like was just working with them, but I don't specifically know what she said to these people to have them not put her up because honestly, I don't even feel like they saw her as a threat because Shayna was not a threat at all. Like at all.
All right, fair
Let's
enough.
be for real.
So I see Brian in the chat saying, Shayna was very fluid for the merge or the jury portion of the game. Shayna kept me safe like twice when I should have gone home, so respect for that. I should have won Final Five, but that's my fault. She told me she had an extra vote, and I approached the game assuming she was telling me the truth, but even if she lied, she kept her word. So it sounds like Brian, you have a different perspective of Shayna's game. And it sounds like you respect, her game and the decisions that she made. Because as Sarah's mentioning, there were times where she didn't go on the block where Sarah was expecting her to, just like I think Sarah had mentioned your HOH, Brian, where you didn't put Shayna up and you put in the chat earlier that the few times Shayna had agency, she said what she wanted and she went through with it. I could have used the veto on Danny and she goes up, but for my game, I didn't want her to, and it helped me. So, Brian and I, I'm not intending on speaking for you, but it sounds like what you're saying is that, you had such a good relationship with her that there were times where you could have put her in danger, like using the veto, but you didn't because you had that relationship with her. Is that accurate? So okay, so it seems like it speaks to the social game there. So going over to Mia now, what is your perception of Shayna and her social game as someone who, was in the game longer and might have seen a little bit of you know, that side of things that maybe, Sarah was saying she didn't see because Shayna started winning after Sarah left.
I don't think our social game was that good. Like, we obviously weren't working together like for the first half of the game. And like she just would barely talk to me. Like we'd have here conversations here and there, but like it was very much like not giving. Um, and then also like up until like when she was like using veto on me and like she formed the alliance with me and everything, like I really thought she was just in Carly's shadow for the most part. Like, and I do think she was in Carly's shadow a lot, especially in the early days, because also like Carly had an amazing social game. So it's like I really think that Shayna was just like under her wing. And like I know that Shayna had some moves at the end of the game, but I still think we have to think about like the beginning where like she kind of was riding Carly's coattails. Like I just view Carly as this like super woman in the game. So it's like it's just interesting. But like obviously she had like a good social game when she made an alliance with me and Brian. Obviously that didn't work out, but it was there, but it was lackluster.
So if you see Shayna as basically, working with Carly and Carly kind of steering the ship and Shayna was just kind of on it, as you're saying, is there something that you need to see from Shayna? And this goes to both of you. Is there something that you guys need to see from Shayna or hear from Shayna during basically finale that might convince you to vote for her? Is there something that you're wanting to know that you're not quite sure about? Because it sounds like with Scott, and again, I don't mean to speak for you guys, but it sounds like you guys are pretty set on your opinions. With Shayna, are things a little bit more fluid or not so much?
It's more fluid. I wouldn't vote for Scott against either Kate or Shayna. But Shayna, I guess I'd have to think about it because I can't attend finale anyways. But um like obviously she had like good gameplay towards the end and everything. And I mean, obviously they got out her like Carly would have beat her in every situation too. So if it's against Scott, she has my vote. If it's against Cade, I'd have to think about it. Depends how salty I'm feeling tomorrow.
All right. And Sarah, where do you stand on things? Is there something you're wanting
I'm gonna
to
have
ask
to,
Shayna or
sorry,
no,
I
I
would
was just
have to
saying,
hear
yeah.
like what move she made that didn't involve Carly because honestly, she was in Carly's shadow. The both of them were. And so I just need to know specifically what move she made where Carly didn't have any say so or yes or no. Um, that she just did for herself to move herself forward in the
Okay.
game. And that would probably help me out. Like, if is there any like besides using the veto on Mia, right? Because y'all all wanted him out apparently. So I just feel like she just I don't want to say she floated, but I just feel like I was saying this even in my confessionals, like this girl needs to win something or else like why is she here? Like she's just not doing anything but just talking. And so I just need to know like she did something in the game, you know? Because right, it just looks like she played towards the end, but who when she won HOH, who did she put up?
When she was HOH, this was at the final six. She put up Brian and Cade, and then Cade won the veto, and then Mia went up, and Mia was voted out. So that
Okay,
was
see,
Shayna's
like
HOH.
Brian saying he was the bigger target, so they should have gotten him out. Like she should have gotten you out. Like that would have been the move. I would have said that was her biggest game move, but her keeping you makes no sense for you. But when he's saying, "Oh, like I could have gone out because I'm the bigger target," no, she kept you in the house because someone else can get you out next week. You will be the bigger target, so
Yes.
you're a pawn, buddy. You don't know. So
Yeah.
he doesn't see that clearly, but that's
I
why
don't
he's
know
saying.
why Brian is saying like they work together so close and like since
Brian, no,
like
he
final
doesn't.
10 they were working. I was like, I mean, maybe obviously I don't know anything, but I'm just like, girl, she would have gotten you out in a heartbeat. Like she would have voted you. Obviously she got me out, but it's like that's because she could just make sure you were gone next vote. Like she didn't have to put you up because someone else could
Exactly.
easily put you up next round.
And for
So
one, in the event that he did win, they don't know who you would have put up, Mia, because they knew you would have targeted them.
yeah.
Brian would have put up Cade for the 500th time. So they kept you in for a reason because they knew you were not going to target them. But because you lost,
Yeah.
they took the shot.
Yeah. Especially like after like backdooring me. Like I would have obviously put them up, but like,
Yeah. But he
yeah,
doesn't see that. They used him as a pawn. Like if you won
I
HOH, Cade
know.
would have gone out the next round. If you lost, you would have gone out. And he gone out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, she should have got Brian out. She should have convinced everyone voting to evict Brian, and that could have been the move. I don't know what she's gonna preach as her biggest move um at the end, to be honest, because he was the move.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I took Mia off the block and we backdoored Cody.
And then what did she do? Put me out, vote me home, put me up on the block and vote me home. Like,
Crazy.
so it's like, how big of a move is that, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So we did have a name drop of Cade. So let's shift over to Cade now. So, how do you guys view, Cade and his games, socially, strategically, are there elements, again, just like with the other two, are there elements that you guys view positively or negatively? Either one of you can start. What are your perceptions?
I mean, he's so unserious, but like, he did play like an amazing social game. Like, yeah, it wasn't like traditional in a sense, but like, he was on the block how many times and how many times did he survive? And he ended up winning competitions later on. He won, how many vetoes did he win? Two? Two so far?
Yeah, so let's quickly go through his statistics. So he does not have any HOHs under his belt. He's been nominated 5 times and he won the veto twice.
Like
So does that speak to
you
anything?
you can't say that he doesn't have a good social game. Like, why is he not going home? Like, if everyone hated him or he's being crazy, like, obviously he would go home. I don't think he had too many big moves. Like, I would say, like, he definitely like aligned himself with the right people. He couldn't ever win HOH to actually get anyone home, but like, I don't know. Something about him, I'm just like, you slayed.
Sarah, do you feel similarly or different? What's your perception?
I literally love Cade. Like he was literally my number one ally from the jump. Like love him. I feel like I would say his social game was horrible. Like horrible. But the fact that he stayed, it just makes it seem like, damn, it was good. But also, I just finished watching the last season of Big Brother, and I would say his game is literally comparable to the girl that wore the glasses. Like, what's her name? The blonde girl with the glasses, the crazy lady.
Angela?
Yeah, like, but minus winning. Like, he literally was just like the fact that he would say all the stuff he would say, just so blunt, and the fact that they kept him in the house, even after the fight with Brian, I seriously thought they were gonna keep Maddie. I don't even know how he stayed over Maddie, but the fact that he would say all those things and like target people, had no filter, like these people kept him in the house thinking like, okay, like he's just here. We can just keep him, just use him as a shield. Like he's just gonna be a pawn to put up, just like they did Angela. And look, he made his way to the basically to the finals. I just feel like, and I don't even think like they were intentional with keeping him. I don't feel like he spoke to people and was just like, he literally said, "Keep me in here, bitch. That's it." Like that's it. And they literally kept him in. So I don't feel like it was anything strategic because half the house was ignoring him most of the time. But I just feel like they just looked over him and just thought, okay, I want this person out in comparison to him. But it worked out for him because it just strung him along in the end. And I was thinking at the beginning, like, okay, this guy needs to win something. Like, what are you doing here? So the fact that he finally won, so happy for him. I thought he won one veto, but he won two, so that's great. But I feel like he played a great game. The fact that he made it all the way to the end without winning until now, so I'm very happy for him.
Right, so I want to bring Danny up to speed on the conversation. And Danny, if you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear it. So at this point, we're talking about Cade. We have gone through Scott and Shayna. I know you were not here for the Shayna portion, so you're more than welcome to share your thoughts on Shayna, and we can come back to Cade. But we are currently talking about Cade's social game. So whatever you want to weigh in on, go ahead.
Yeah, super quick. I do think that Shayna played really well. I do feel like she probably lied even more than the other two. But ow! But I do, sorry, a puppy just jumped my back. But I do really value Shayna's game a lot. And as far as Cade goes, I have no intention of ever voting for him after that ridiculous nonsense that he pulled that night where he dragged me into voice, despite me being really, really tired, to go read out an entire conversation that he had with Brian and then pasted it in house chat for no real reason other than to start drama, which is just so unnecessary. And so, the end. And then ghosted me the whole next day. So,
Oh, is
So,
this when I was
it's,
in the
yeah.
house?
no.
Oh, damn.
So with Sarah not being in the house for that, Danny, do you want to fill Sarah in a little bit about more specifically what happened and what
Yeah,
bothers you about
he
it?
was so mad that anybody would give Brian the time of day that he was just harassing everybody in their one-on-ones, especially me, I guess, to not trust Brian, blah, blah, blah. He's a liar, he's a snake. And he was telling me, he's like, oh, Brian did this, Brian did that. And then he's like, you have to come into the house chat and I'll tell you all about it. I'm like, I'm tired. I saw 14 clients today. And he's like, no, come in the house. So I go into the house chat. He then proceeds to copy and paste his entire one-on-one with Brian. Brian joins the house chat because I messaged him and I was like, hey, what the hell is going on? He joins. Kate just keeps like drilling into him. The whole thing was ridiculous. And like I told Brian afterwards, I was like, I don't even care if the conversation that he sent was true. It doesn't really matter. That's really not the point. The point is that like I can't get behind that. All just because he wanted Brian out so freaking bad. That I can't with that. So, ow.
HOH was this?
This was, when was
So
this?
so Cade was on the block with Brian?
No, this was it was right before I got evicted, but I don't remember if it was after Noms or not. I
Well,
don't think
Brian was on
so.
the block?
No, he just didn't want me talking to Brian. He was just being a pain in the ass. He was just being like an absolute shit starter, pain in my ass that night.
But
And
you see the
so
fact that he was doing all of that, like literally every day, and the fact that he still stayed, like I don't even think that was
I'm
intentional. I
sorry,
feel
I
like
just can't.
that's
No,
just
it
his
is intentional, and I
personality.
just can't reward that kind of childish behavior. And that's why I hate playing with 18-year-olds. But I just will not be rewarding that kind of behavior. So it's just unnecessary.
You
And
think
then
that
what
was
happens is,
intentional?
yes, I do think it was intentional. And then what happens is it validates and encourages other people to do it. And it's just completely unnecessary. So no, there's nothing that he could say that could possibly ever get my vote. The end. That's all
I
I have to
think
say about Cade.
maybe that's his personality.
Well, then honestly, he needs to grow up because it was ridiculous. So,
Yeah, he is young.
yeah.
But I feel like that's why I really thought he was gonna go home. Who was he up against?
When
Maddie.
he
I
was
thought
up
he was
against
gonna go
Maddie, he
home.
didn't even know he was staying.
That's what I'm
Like
saying. He didn't know he was
he
staying.
only stayed because it was better for other people's games for Maddie to go home. He wasn't even part of the conversation. He didn't campaign to stay, like nothing. So
Yeah,
no,
he
he
told me
didn't even
that.
start playing until the second half of the game. So I really can't reward his behavior at all. And I can't believe anybody is even considering voting for him when he could be up against either Shayna or Scott, who've been playing since day one. Like the idea that anybody is entertaining voting for Cade is blowing my mind. So, because he was nice to you, that's not a good enough reason for me. So,
I think Cade played a better game than
Cade didn't play the game until 2 days ago. Like he just was not playing the game until recently. Maybe that day that he started doing that nonsense in the house chat, but he did not even know he was staying. Like not that he was blindsided, he did not try to stay. Like
but
he had
him
no attempt to stay that time.
him being going on the block 5 times and staying in the house, whether he knew about it or not, is that's big. Like Scott,
I disagree. I only think that he was ever nominated because of the twist at the beginning of the game. So everybody knew that one of their noms was going to wind up staying. And it's just easy to have a permanent pawn. Like a permanent pawn is not somebody who is playing the game. They are some other person's pawn. That's why they're a pawn.
I just feel like at least we knew where he was at. Like he spoke, like he was vocal with everyone. I feel like Scott just listened to whatever Carly said. Like I don't even feel like Scott spoke game to anyone. Like I don't know where his head was at. I don't know who he wanted to target. I don't know who he was aligned with because he never mentioned it. I just know because I'm a genius. But he just didn't speak about anything revolving the game. So we're gonna go to the finals now, and he's gonna tell us all these things he did, and it's gonna be like, where's the proof? Because it didn't seem like you were doing anything.
I mean,
Whereas
that's kind of just like a matter of perspective because he did talk game to me. And like I said, we even talked about the possibility of a blind. So we both didn't name names, but he knew that if I won the double, I was putting up Carly and Shayna. And I knew that if he won the double, he was going to backdoor Cody. It's just like we both knew that going into it. And even if
but
our ideas weren't completely aligned, like we still talked game, even though if they were in opposition. So, I mean,
he
maybe you
couldn't.
didn't talk game with him, but I certainly did. So
So who was his targets when you were talking game with him?
he wanted Cody out, but to be fair, Cody talks back about Scott since day one too. Like the two of them wanted each other out.
Since when
So,
did Scott want Cody out?
um, both of them by like week two, they were both very wary of each other. I mean, I spoke to both of them a lot, and they probably both talked about wanting each other out pretty early on. And it's kind of weird to like be in the middle of that, but like,
I know
um,
Cody wanted Scott out. I knew he was
yeah.
like suspicious of him, but I just feel like what's his name? Scott wouldn't have gotten Cody out if Shayna didn't use the veto. And
But I
I
mean,
feel
that was
like
the whole plan. The plan was to backdoor Cody.
yeah, but Shayna still had to use the veto. Like that was her
Yeah.
choice,
I
right?
mean,
So
Cody staying in the game wasn't good for Shayna, so that's just another perk
so
on
who
Shayna's
who would you
game.
give that move to? Like who would you give
The
that
two of them
to?
together, like if it's Scott and Shayna up at the end, I still think Shayna played a better game than Scott, but that's an overall thing. If you're talking about that one thing, then I would say it's probably Scott because he's the one who had the guts to do it. And it did cost him a little bit, but he managed to recover pretty well. So,
I feel like he only put Cody up because he knew everyone else wanted him out and he had the votes for it. I don't think he would have put him
well,
up if he didn't
yeah,
have the
that's the only
votes.
reason why you would backdoor anybody is if you know you have the votes for it beforehand. So,
You don't think they all like had a hand in him like Cody going out?
no, because I still think that Carly threw the HOHs that week.
Yeah, that's intentional though.
I know. So no, I don't think anybody else had the guts to do it because they weren't willing to sacrifice their games. But that's kind of irrelevant because I still think that Shayna played a better game than Scott. So asking me who gets the credit for it, it doesn't really matter because if it's Scott and Shayna, my vote still goes to Shayna. Um,
Shayna played a better game than I guess strategically. I don't know. She didn't win anything, but strategically you mean, right?
yeah, she did win things.
When I left, probably.
Yeah.
I think Scott has more wins than her, right?
Scott had a half an HOH, then a full HOH. I don't know if he's won any vetoes. And Shayna had two vetoes and an
Who did she,
HOH.
I don't know. Like I'm just trying to think. Like if you look at like hindsight, I would say Shayna did more with her wins, but technically, since Scott got out Cody, allegedly, you would think like he played better with his wins. But I don't know. I feel like her getting out Mia over Brian, like why would you not tar get out Brian? Like he's right there, you know? Who got out Brian?
That was uh wasn't that Carly HOH?
It was Carly. It was a Carly
Harley
HOH
again.
that round. And if we're just talking about, trying to bring it back, if we're talking about competition wins, because everyone has their different ways of viewing people and what they value. So in terms of competition wins, because that's what you guys are currently talking about, for the record, Shayna has two HOHs and one veto. Cade has zero HOHs and two vetoes, and Scott has two HOHs, zero vetoes. So three for Shayna, two for Scott, two for Cade. So pretty even in terms of numbers if we're looking at, pure statistics in that way. So, overall, does the number of competition wins matter? Is it about what you do with those wins? And, I know you guys have touched on it a little bit. How do you guys feel in terms of the wins? Who made better use of their wins? Who actually used their wins to further their game? Does anyone have opinions on that?
It's wins for
What was that, Sarah?
what did Cade do with his wins? He won veto. Like was that to get himself off the block?
Yes, twice Cade removed himself from the block with his two veto wins.
That was on Carly's HOH?
It was both times when Shayna was HOH. Final six and final four.
Okay, and then who went out like in replace of him?
Those were the rounds that Mia left and then Carly left. Final six, final four.
Mia left. No, Carly left on Shayna's HOH.
At final four, yes. Shayna
Yeah, it's
won
final four HOH.
HOH, put up Cade and Scott. Cade won the veto. So Carly had to be the renom. So Cade was the only vote, and he voted out
Period.
Carly.
Okay. So if we're going 3-2-2, I think Cade got out the best player. Carly was the best player in the game, and he did what he had to do to get that person out. We could say Scott got out Cody, but he didn't vote. So, you know, it was people who voted that got him out. But Cade taking out Carly instead of Scott, that's huge. That's huge. On her best friend's HOH, he did his big one with that. I
So
don't know who Shayna got out, to be honest.
I just want to, again, for the finalists when they watch this back, because Brian is here and he's typing in the chat, and I want to make sure that they know what Brian is saying. So Brian is sharing that. Basically paid one when he needed to, and it was impactful. And in terms of using HOHs for themselves, Brian would say that Shayna did more, but Cade did what he had to do, and that Brian respects Cade's game. So, Brian, if you want to, type an answer to this question, I'm going to pose to you. Why do you feel then that Shayna, as you said, was she I guess used her HOHs more for herself than maybe, I mean, Kate doesn't have any HOH wins, but Scott does. Scott has two. So why do you personally feel that Shayna used her HOHs more so for herself than maybe Scott did for himself? So you're saying Shayna was HOH, aka she dictated the nominations, and Scott was a tool for Shayna and Carly. So there's again this idea that has been brought up tonight that Scott was really someone who was following from the kind of I guess the advice in some ways from Shayna and Carly, whereas Shayna was more so playing for herself. Danny, I don't know if you were here when that was brought up before. Do you have any thoughts on that? If on in terms of Scott being a tool for Shayna and Carly, as Brian says?
I don't necessarily think it was like a tool for Shayna, whoops, a tool for Shayna and Carly, more so like what I said when I was in the car, that like you can't be friends with everyone. When you do that, it comes off like you are like weak-willed and you can't pretend to be working with everybody and have it come off good. There are ways to have conversations with everybody and not make it seem like wishy-washy or non-committal in a way that doesn't rub people that way. Like I do think that Shayna was able to do that where she also wasn't working with everybody, but wasn't mean to people. So like I don't think that I don't know. I just feel like that his biggest issue is really the way that he handled people. So I do give her like a lot more credit for being able to play that part better. And yeah, so I would say that she played more for herself than anyone else, not really worried about what other people were thinking as much. But never being mean. Like she told me straight up that she was voting me out. Like she wasn't mean about it. So um
So Brian put in the chat that he agrees with what Danny just said, and his question is of Scott's HOHs, did he do something that benefited only him? So I don't know if anyone here has their opinion of that, or if that's more so something that you guys are trying to figure out tomorrow if Scott's in the final two, if that's something that you would be looking to basically get an answer from him about if the HOHs that he had benefited solely him or really benefited others more so. Because Sarah put in the chat that her perception is that he did what the house expected and didn't want to get blood on his hands. So if that's the perception, and if someone disagrees, please feel free to speak out. But if that's the perception, that might be something you guys are looking to find out tomorrow. So with that, I want to transition to kind of wrapping up before we, have finale tomorrow. What are you guys looking to find out from the finalists? Is there anything in particular that you're excited to ask the final three or say to them, or that you're just looking for some clarity on? Brian put in the chat that a question that he has is that Cade won very clutch POVs, but beside that, does his game hold muster? Do you guys have an opinion on that? Aside from the POVs, what else from his game do you guys in particular respect? Or is that something you're willing to skim tomorrow and see?
I respect the fact that he was like a target 5 times and he stayed in the house. Regardless, you can say he was carried to the finals, but he was literally carried to the finals and he won at the end, got out the biggest player, and he won when he needed to win. In comparison to the other two could be looked at as followers to Carly or just did what she wanted. And then they started to also again play at the end. They all played at the 3 finalists all played at the end. Scott maybe won at the beginning, but they all started playing at the end. You can't say that they started playing at the beginning. We were the ones who won at the beginning. So if anything, we got them to the finals, but whatever. So I would say like they played at the end, they did what they needed to do, but who's mattered the most,
yeah,
you
I
know?
mean I would say that that Shayna really kicked the game into gear when she was on who was she on the block against? It was earlier in the
When I
game.
put her up, yeah.
Yeah.
But Cade is the reason I'm telling you right now, Cade is the reason she stayed in the house. He's the
I
reason.
mean, I was ready to vote her out, and like she called me up and had some
Exactly.
pretty compelling arguments. Kate didn't do shit to make me the keeper.
No, Cade
She
was the
did.
reason she stayed. You were gonna vote her to stay, but the rest of us,
I
well,
was
I put
not
her up.
voting her to stay until she called me up.
I know, but she called you. I'm saying Cade the day before, I put her on the block, said was in agreement that we're gonna get her out. Like he was like, put her up, we're gonna get her out. I don't know what she told him. Once he changed his mind, all the numbers that we had to vote her out flipped. They said, okay, Cade messed it up. The reason why we're not voting to evict her anymore is because of Cade. So he's the reason why she stayed. If Cade would have just stayed loyal to me and would have just got her out when I wanted, she would have been out on my HOH.
So
But
you don't give Shayna any credit for fighting like hell that week and talking to pretty much everybody that she could.
no, I give her credit for speaking to Cade. That's it.
And what about to everyone else? Because I was still voting her out, and that wouldn't have been enough votes, even with Cade.
I made a group chat and everyone wanted her out except Cade. Cade changed his mind, so everyone was
I was
scared
not
like,
in that
listen,
group chat.
I know you weren't in the group chat. I
Okay,
voted.
so then why wouldn't you like you can't say everyone wanted her out when I would have voted her out and it
We
didn't
had the
come down to
numbers to get
Cade.
her out. We had the
But you
numbers to get
didn't.
her out
You were
without
wrong.
you, Danny.
I
Without
know,
you,
but
we
I'm
had.
saying your numbers were wrong. You didn't have them.
You're not listening to what I'm saying. The day
I'm
before I
hearing
put
what
up,
you're saying. You counted and you thought you had enough, and you didn't when
listen,
Cade flipped.
the day before I put Shayna on the block, listen, Cade, that's the when he fought with, he's the reason I put her up because he exposed her for saying that she wanted me out when I was on the block. That's why I put her up because she lied about saving me. So when I put her up, everyone, literally everyone wanted her out. Brian wanted her out. Mia wanted her out. Freaking Maddie wanted her out. Then Cade comes to me and he's like, no, not even. Brian is the one who told me that he's not keeping her anymore or he's not voting her out. I asked Cade now, he's like, yeah, I'm not. I don't want to do it anymore. So then I go to Maddie and Maddie's like, oh yeah, Cade flipped. Like, I don't know if we can do it anymore. Mia, Brian, they're all saying he flipped. So it's like we didn't have the numbers because of Cade. If Cade kept to his word and said he wanted her out, everyone would have voted Shayna out. I promise you. But you weren't, I didn't count you because I didn't think you would have kept her. So I didn't count you as a vote.
Why didn't you consider everybody in the house when
I
you were counting votes?
I was just counting who I guaranteed knew. I didn't know your relationship with Shayna. I didn't want to risk asking you to vote her out and then you have a good relationship with her. That's
But
why I
like
didn't
I
count you.
just think it's wild that like you're saying that like she didn't play until the end and you're giving him credit for her staying when he's just one of many votes that flipped.
I'm saying,
And
I'm saying her, I literally said before you got on, I said her best move was her staying on my HOH. That was her best move. I don't know a bigger move that she did besides that. She needs to explain that to me in the finals. Her staying on my HOH was her biggest move because I didn't expect her to stay. I don't know what she said to Cade for him to flip. That was her biggest move in my opinion because like why wouldn't we get her out, you know? But that's just my opinion to be honest. I don't know what else she did that would be bigger in my mind. She would have to just tell me. Like she got out Shayna, but technically that was Cade because he had the sole vote. Her another big move would have been her getting out Brian on her HOH. She should have convinced everyone to take out Brian. But that's what I said. That's what I said. Like I feel like Carly said something to everyone else to keep Brian so that Carly can take Brian out herself. Like I don't feel like Shayna like played the right moves like when she needed to. That's why I said she played at the end because she's at the end right now, to be honest.
yeah, and like I don't understand why people give Carly a lot of credit for what Shayna did. I think that maybe Shayna like let that happen and like let her be the face of it, but I still give her a lot of credit. I think that Shayna talked to way more people than Carly did. I think she did way more of the manipulation than Carly did. So,
She
um,
could have, but Carly was actually like winning at the beginning.
at the beginning, sure.
So I guess Shayna had to talk to people because she couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like I don't think people give her enough credit. Like I don't think she was just um like Carly's puppet or anything. She certainly wasn't.
I do
I
think
think she
like
played pretty well.
she really was in her ear though. Like I feel like she was literally like her number two person. Like I feel like they work together a lot. I just feel like I don't know, just Carly just gives this like I'm gonna make the final decision. She just gives off that, you know? And she won a lot of things, so she technically had the final say. I do feel like Shayna spoke to her about certain moves that would benefit them as a team, but I just feel like Carly at the end of the day had the final say. And Scott, I don't even think he was a factor in any decision. Like once Shayna and Carly said, we're doing this, he was probably like, okay. So I don't even consider because I feel like he didn't make not one decision that benefited him. Putting up Austin, you did that just to not get blood on his hands, and he told me that. And then he got out Cody. Congrats. But I feel like anyone would have got out Cody next. If I stayed, I would have got out Cody. So it is what it is. But I feel like I looking now, I feel like Shayna did play a good game, but I just feel like she was a bit messy.
Yeah, I've been reading like Brian's responses too, that he thinks that like Carly and Shayna were way more equal, but Mia going over Brian is kind
Carly
of
and Shayna
wild.
were not equal. What?
That their partnership was fairly equal.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So hopping in here because I definitely want to bring it back to center as we wrap up here. What are for the four of you, what are you looking forward to seeing tomorrow or hearing? It can be something you're hoping one of them or all of them, you can talk about a specific person or all of them in general. If there's something you're looking for them to admit to own up to explain better, or just something you're looking forward to seeing in general. It doesn't have to be a question necessarily, but what are you all looking forward to seeing tomorrow or wanting or hoping that you see tomorrow? Because it might not be something that you end up getting, right? So does anyone have, so Brian said in the chat, I need to understand their game, aka how they view their game matches my perception, meaning Brian's perception of the game. So Brian's hoping that, you know, his ideas of the game are matching, what they're saying and what they're explaining. Okay, all right. Um, Danny, do you have anything that you're looking to see
Um,
tomorrow
I
from any of them?
would love to see Scott take some accountability for the way that people feel about the manner in which he sent them home. Like, because you can vote someone out and not be mad and like them not be mad at you, or you can do whatever Scott did. So I definitely think that he's got to like show some accountability for that. Um, but for me, I also need like Shayna to take ownership of it and just be like, hey, I did this and I did this and I did this.
All right, fair enough. Mia, I know you're not going to be there tomorrow, but is there anything that, if you're able to, listen in or anything at any point, or just in general, even if you're not there, are you hoping that there's something that comes out or that you hear afterwards?
I have a really stupid question. Is it a final two or a final three?
It's a final two. So what's happening, if anyone's not clear, is we're gonna do part three live, and then the winner gets to choose who gets third, and then it's a final two. So even if you guys are looking for an answer from someone in particular, you might not get it because they might get third.
So, Mia, just for clarity, in Big Brother, the final HOH is a three-parter where all three of them participate in part one. Then the winner of that automatically goes to part three. The two losers compete in part two. And then the winner of that goes against the winner of the first part. And that's usually like right before like jury questioning.
Okay.
And then they compete live and then they immediately vote someone out. So is it a
Okay.
five?
I
Like
think I just got in my head a
Mia,
little
I love
bit.
you.
I think I got in my head a little bit because I was just thinking like it's a final two, but then I don't know, the way that Zach was phrasing questions, I was like, wait, so we have to vote out of three people? That's
No, because we
crazy.
we never know. We don't know. We will not know until tomorrow night who gets
No, I
third, and then
know, I
immediately we're
know.
going into the final two. So,
Yeah.
is there anything, Mia, that you're hoping happens or tomorrow or is said or
Um,
explained?
yeah, hopefully I can tune in a little bit. I'm gonna try, but I just want to know like Shayna's complete path because, I kind of agree with Sarah. Like in the beginning, I do think she was like shadowed by Carly because that's how I perceived it. Obviously, everyone like had different interactions with them too. Um, and maybe it was just that I talked to Carly more. Um, so like I want to know like her whole journey if I'm missing anything in the beginning, like any like I don't know, just social game or strategic game that I'm missing. And then I want to know like a little bit more about Cade's inside his brain. And I don't need to know anything about Scott.
Right. And Sarah, what are you looking to find out tomorrow or hear or hoping to hear?
First, for the matchups, I really hope it is Scott and Cade. I want it to be Shayna and Cade, but just for like, I just want to hear what Scott has to say, like the reasonings for what he did in the game. That would be like really good. Um, but I just want to know for Scott, I want to know like what moves he made that was solely his own, and if he can explain them full out without like mentioning, oh, Carly or Shayna. I just want to know like what he did that benefited him and not his alliance. Um, Cade, he can say whatever he wants. And then for Shayna, I don't know. I just feel like Shayna, I feel like she was very straight up. Like I feel like she had the best jury management to me, and I just want to know what she did in the game that she feels like got her to the end. Like to be honest, that's about it.
Right, fair enough. Well, we are definitely looking forward to tomorrow, and I am really looking forward to an amazing finale. And I'm hoping that you can all be there and ask your questions live, and hopefully, hopefully maybe some things will be said that maybe challenge some of your opinions on the final three, or things that you thought, or things that you weren't sure about coming in. We definitely, love when the finalists are able to explain their games or explain themselves. So I appreciate you all being here, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And then after finale, we have reunion where we're going to give out some amazing awards. So again, definitely hope that you can all be there for that, because we want to spill all the stuff about the game, all the behind the scenes, the reunion, what we as production think of everything. So hoping you can all be there, and thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream.